Ever since my husband's company found its footing, he morphed into a stranger. His affair with another woman became brazen, as if he didn't care about hiding it anymore. When I confronted him, he dismissed my concerns with a mocking laugh. "You're worthless, living off my earnings. Be thankful I even bother with you," he spat, his contempt oozing with every word. "Get a job if you're so unhappy." Defiant, I accepted his challenge. Landing a position at his family's company, I plotted my retaliation against Michael. I'm Karen, once content as a 34-year-old homemaker, while Michael, my 36-year-old husband, managed a printing business. Our romance sparked in the corridors of our workplace. He was in sales and I in illustrations. Our love story culminated in marriage when I was 26. Once we settled into our routine, he made the bold move of resigning from his job, proposing the idea of launching a new venture together. Uncertain, I sought counsel from our trusted business partner, Bob, with whom we shared past collaborations. Bob, a seasoned CEO known for his diverse business ventures and adeptness in advertising, readily lent his support. Bob backed our endeavor and even contributed funds. I recounted, "Karen's illustrations have always impressed me," Bob remarked, his praise leaving me humbled. With gratitude, we vowed to steer our company to triumph. Just the two of us, I affirmed to Bob as we embarked on our entrepreneurial journey. Initially, we grappled with the constraints of a cramped apartment. However, with the ascent of our company, we upgraded to a sleek high-rise condominium. It was then that my husband broached the idea of me focusing solely on homemaking. "I'll hire someone else for the illustrations. Eventually, I need your full support," he asserted, his words leaving me torn. Reluctantly, I confided in Bob, our steadfast investor. "I regret to inform you, but I must step away from illustration work," I disclosed to Bob. His empathy was palpable. "It pains me to think I won't have the pleasure of witnessing Karen's illustrations anymore. Yet if you ever decide to return to it, just say the word. I'll stand by you," Bob reassured me. "Thank you, truly," I expressed my gratitude. And thus, I embraced the role of homemaker to bolster my husband's aspirations. However, my passion for drawing persisted, finding solace in sharing my illustrations on Instagram. The unexpected warmth of response has become my clandestine delight. As my husband's business flourished, our lifestyle mirrored its success. His investments yielded opulent returns, evident in the acquisition of a new car and bespoke suits from prestigious labels. While I deemed these indulgences excessive, I recognized their significance in his role as the company's figurehead. Despite his demanding schedule, he remained steadfast in our tradition of sharing dinner at home. It was a solemn pact, a sanctuary carved out for just the two of us amidst the chaos. Over these meals, he divulged the company's forthcoming ventures, a privilege that filled me with contentment. Supporting his ambitions became my source of joy. I once believed our harmonious routine would endure indefinitely. Despite the company's continued prosperity, subtle shifts began to emerge in my husband's demeanor. Gone were the animated discussions about business during our dinners. "How's everything at the company?" I inquired, met with lukewarm responses. "Everything's fine," he'd mutter, his enthusiasm conspicuously absent. Persistently, I probed for more details, only to be met with terse rebuttals. "Don't pry, you wouldn't understand. You're always here. I shouldn't have to explain every little detail." His words pierced through me, a stark departure from the understanding and camaraderie we once shared. I attempted to rationalize his behavior as fatigue or stress, but that night, as he silently retreated to our room after dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in. This pattern persisted, with my husband increasingly opting for dinners away from home. Feeble justifications of social obligations or client meetings replaced our once sacred mealtime together. Despite my waiting patiently, delaying my own dinner, his absence grew routine, his excuses dwindling to nothingness. Confrontation only invited his wrath, a stark departure from the partner I once knew. I felt reduced to a mere servant in my own home, the weight of his indifference crushing me to tears. We once weathered the storms of entrepreneurship together, hand in hand. Now, I found myself relegated beneath even his employees, my sacrifices met with scorn rather than appreciation. My domestic duties weren't born out of a passion for homemaking. They were a testament to my unwavering commitment to his aspirations. Yet any semblance of gratitude had long since vanished from his eyes. In his absence, I find solace in my illustrations, a sanctuary where stress dissipates and creativity flourishes. With each stroke, my online following burgeons, their supportive comments a balm to my weary soul. Among them, a familiar name emerges, Bob's. Bob extends an offer to collaborate again. A glimmer of hope, I muse, buoyed by the prospect. Without this beacon, I might have succumbed to despair. As our shared dinners faded into memory, a palpable chasm widened between my husband and me. Suspicion crept in, fueled by the faint scent of perfume lingering on his abandoned suit jacket, a fragrance foreign to him. When confronted, he flippantly dismissed it as a triviality, a smirk playing on his lips. His nonchalance stoked the embers of my long-suppressed sorrow, igniting them into a fiery rage. Enough with the charade, I resolved. Left alone in the confines of our home, relegated to mundane chores, the gnawing fear of societal abandonment gnawed at my sanity with each passing day. My friends could only offer envy, while my parents dismissed my concerns as trivial luxuries. Left to grapple with my turmoil, alone, I bore the weight of my suspicions in solitude. Then, one fateful evening, my husband returned home inebriated. Amidst my desperate efforts to tend to him, a damning discovery awaited, a crimson imprint adorning his shirt collar. Its presence could not be dismissed as innocent, a glaring testament to another woman's trespass. In that moment, I unearthed undeniable evidence of my husband's betrayal. With resolve coursing through my veins, I confronted him the following day, brandishing the damning garment. "Where were you last night, and what is this?" I demanded, pointing to the incriminating mark. Though caught off guard by the lipstick stain, my husband remained eerily composed in the face of my accusation. "I was out with friends at a bar. Must have happened then, right? You'd need to take off your jacket for that. Didn't you notice?" he retorted, his words laced with defiance. Unconvinced by his feeble alibi, I responded, "I don't recall." With a sudden motion, my husband rose from his seat, his hand connecting with my cheek in a searing slap. Stunned, I stumbled backward, reeling from the unexpected blow, the sting of pain radiating across my skin. "When will you understand? Who do you think is providing for us?" he spat before retreating to his sanctuary. I watched his departure, tears tracing silent paths down my cheeks. In that moment, the truth struck with brutal clarity. My husband's love had waned, leaving behind a cavernous void. I was left shattered by the cold reality of our fractured relationship. From that day forth, my husband's temper became increasingly volatile. His displeasure manifested in violent outbursts, whether it be at a meal I had prepared or any perceived infraction. The once tender moments of our marriage were now eclipsed by a shadow of fear and uncertainty. "This tastes atrocious. Do you even pay attention to what I eat? If you want to keep being my wife, you better sharpen your culinary skills," my husband berated before storming out of the room. "I'll dine out. Eating this would sabotage my productivity," he declared. I trailed after him, desperation evident in my voice. "Please wait. I want to prepare meals you enjoy. But you're never home or communicate with me. How can I cater to your tastes like that?" My husband clicked his tongue in irritation at my plea. "Should we just divorce then? I'm fine with it. I can manage without you, but can you survive without me?" he sneered, his gaze piercing through me. "You're nothing but a leech, living off my earnings," he spat, his words a venomous assault. In that moment, a realization dawned upon me. This man was beyond redemption. The compassionate husband I once knew was a relic of the past. "Then I'll find a job," I declared. "What? What's gotten into you?" My husband's voice echoed with incredulity. "I'll strive for financial independence too," I affirmed. My husband erupted into laughter, doubling over. "Who would you consider hiring someone as powerless as you?" he taunted. Suppressing my rising fury, I maintained composure. Reacting with anger would only escalate the abuse. If I couldn't win through strength, I needed to strategize differently. "Fine, do as you wish, but don't neglect your household duties. With your meager earnings, I won't tolerate a neglected home," my husband dismissed, exiting our dwelling. Swiftly taking action, I enlisted the services of a detective to uncover evidence of my husband's infidelity. The findings were damning, a trove of incriminating photographs capturing my husband's dalliances with extravagantly dressed women, reveling in drinks and discreet hotel entrances. It was a mosaic of betrayal, with not just one, but several women ensnared in his web of deceit. Yet as I surveyed the evidence and listened to the detective's report, a peculiar calm washed over me. There was no rage, no sorrow, only a pragmatic acknowledgement of the situation. The ostentatious behavior that had once irked me now served as a conduit for undeniable proof. 1 week later, adorned in my finest attire, I ascended to a restaurant atop a luxurious hotel. Despite my efforts, I felt out of place amidst the opulent clientele. With a hesitant step, I approached a reserved table where Bob awaited. My apologies for the delay, I offered, but Bob's warm smile assuaged my apprehension as he motioned for me to take a seat. Karen, no need for apologies. I've been eagerly anticipating our meeting. Your presence is worth the wait, Bob reassured, casting aside any notion of inconvenience. Bob had played a pivotal role in our journey to independence, generously backing us financially when my husband and I decided to venture out on our own. Now, he held a prominent position as the president of my husband's parent company. I'm immensely grateful for your unwavering support during our leap to independence. Your confidence in us meant the world. I expressed my gratitude. Bob chuckled warmly. It was a no-brainer for me. After all, our history together made it an easy decision, he replied. It's evident the company is thriving under your guidance, I observed. A hint of seriousness crossed Bob's features at my remark. Yes, it's progressing well, but today our focus is on your acceptance of my invitation, correct? He redirected, his smile returning to reassure me. Yes, indeed, I affirmed, straightening in my seat and extending a warm greeting. Reflecting on our past interactions, I recalled Bob's genuine admiration for my illustrations. He had been instrumental in providing funding for our venture into independence, recognizing the value I brought to the table. Moreover, he had been the lone voice cautioning against the path of becoming a homemaker. Though we had lost touch, Bob's reemergence in my life through social media rekindled our connection, leading to regular exchanges via email and text messages. You always had a keen understanding of my illustrations, didn't you? I remarked. I've been a fan of your work for quite some time. I'm thrilled you never gave up on illustrating. Your decision to reach out to me caught me off guard, though, Bob confessed. Bob had extended offers for me to join his team as an illustrator on multiple occasions, but my domestic responsibilities had always stood in the way. However, after much contemplation, I had recently made the decision to accept his proposal. In a recent conversation with my husband, Bob had seemed hesitant yet determined, and now, as he locked eyes with me, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Bob's words hit me like a bolt from the blue. Michael's company has garnered quite a negative reputation, he divulged. What? That's surprising. Michael always spoke so highly of his job. I never imagined this, I mused, taken aback by the revelation. I've been closely involved for a while now, but as the company expanded, the quality of their work took a nosedive. Missed deadlines, errors, and he seems oblivious to it all. Bob lamented. Is this reputation widespread? I inquired, a knot forming in my stomach. The company's rapid growth initially attracted positive attention. However, it's now under scrutiny for all the wrong reasons. There are even whispers of unsavory affiliations, Bob disclosed, his tone tinged with concern. I had no idea. I've been so out of touch with Michael's professional life, I realized, a pang of unease settling in. To lighten the mood, Bob chimed in cheerfully, You'll be creating illustrations for us from now on. No need to outsource anymore. It's a significant asset for our company. I appreciate your understanding and flexibility regarding my family commitments. I express my gratitude. No worries at all. We believe in maintaining a healthy work-life balance for our employees, Bob reassured with a smile. And so, I embarked on my journey working for Bob. With my sole focus on illustration tasks, there was no need for me to commute to the office. Bob graciously granted me the opportunity to work remotely, allowing me to seamlessly juggle my household responsibilities. The sheer joy of creating art, once confined to a hobby, now bloomed into a fulfilling profession. However, amidst the satisfaction of my work, I couldn't shake the longing to have more control over my time, to pursue my passion without constraints imposed by domestic duties and supporting my husband. With my newfound income, I believed I could sustain myself independently. However, as I diligently worked, one day, the abrupt sound of the door slamming jolted me from my concentration. Rushing to the hallway, I was met with my husband's furious gaze. You traitor, he seethed. Confusion clouded my mind as I struggled to comprehend his sudden outburst. To think my own wife would snatch away my job, he spat. In that moment, realization dawned upon me. My husband's ire stemmed from my collaboration with Bob. which had opened doors to additional contracts with companies affiliated with his own. This was my retaliation, my way of reclaiming power from the one who had belittled me. But irony must have been galling for him, to have his livelihood threatened by the very person he had scorned. You have no authority to dictate my actions. I'm simply carrying out my duties with your explicit consent, I asserted, holding my ground as my husband's anger simmered. If you feel compelled, go ahead and strike me. I won't hesitate to involve the authorities, I declared, unyielding in the face of his aggression. My company's downfall is on your hands. What exactly are you trying to achieve? He accused, his frustration palpable. This has nothing to do with me, I rebutted, resolute in my stance. Retrieving the divorce papers from the adjoining room, I handed them to my husband with a steady hand. We're no longer bound by matrimony. Let's not prolong this any further, I stated firmly, severing the ties that bound us together. You're divorcing me over my company's struggles. You're just after my money, aren't you? I retorted, stung by his accusation. I could have ended this marriage whenever I please, but I chose to wait. Now that I'm successful and earning, suddenly it's convenient for you to walk away. Wait a moment. Let's discuss the future of the company first before we rush into divorce. We founded it together, remember? You're the one who ousted me from that company, my husband interjected, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. I severed all ties with that company, and I intend to seek proper compensation, I asserted firmly, unyielding in my resolve. Michael's frustration was evident, his agitation palpable as he gnawed on his lip in vexation. How shameless can you be? You have no right to talk about compensation when you're the one initiating the divorce. Do you even realize how many times you've hurt me and your affairs? I had undeniable proof, I retorted, brandishing the incriminating photographs. As he beheld the evidence of his infidelity, my husband's facade crumbled, and he sank to his knees, pleading with desperation. Please, I beg of you. The company's on the brink of collapse. I can't handle the added burden of compensation or a divorce. I need your support now more than ever. Everyone has abandoned me the moment they caught wind of our troubles. You're the only one left, he implored, his voice quivering with raw vulnerability. I dismissed his desperate plea as utterly futile. Gathering only my essentials and work materials, I departed from the house without a backward glance. My return home only occurred once the divorce proceedings were concluded, solely to retrieve my belongings. By then, my husband's company was hemorrhaging mistakes, and he found himself deserted by all. Reduced to pleading for funds to compensate me, he spent his days in a pitiful state. In stark contrast, I embraced solitude, forging a livelihood through my beloved craft of illustration. With each stroke of the pen, I accumulated wealth, all while upholding my integrity, a stark contrast to my ex-husband's downfall. My daughter, Erin, now a college student, has been living independently for about a year despite receiving a reasonable monthly allowance and supposedly dedicating herself to a part-time job. When Erin returned home, she looked worn out and thin. Are you pushing yourself too hard? Are you getting enough to eat? I asked with concern. I'm managing with things like cereal, she replied. But I crave more. Yet Erin fell silent, confirming my uneasy suspicions. She thanked me, saying, "Thanks for the $13 a month, Mom." I couldn't believe what I heard. $13? I've been transferring $1,300 every month. My name is Laura. People have always said I have poor judgment in men. My first boyfriend in college cheated on me within 3 months. Then I dated a younger guy who became a freeloader, likely because I was footing the bills. The man I married after 4 years of dating turned out to be both a spendthrift and a cheat. After divorcing him, I raised Erin as a single mom for 10 years. Erin, whom I once perceived as young and naive, has matured into a dependable daughter, taking the lead in household chores. Despite my insistence that she need not exert herself so much, she remains steadfast, asserting, "You're already doing so much for us, Mom. I worry you'll burn out if I don't help." Moreover, Erin never slacks in her studies. "I want to contribute like you, Mom. I don't want to be a burden," she expresses, diligently preparing for her college entrance exams since her high school days. Though she may exhibit traces of naivety, I wholeheartedly believe she's an exceptional daughter. After diligent studying, Erin received the long-awaited acceptance letter from a prestigious public university. Together, we eagerly searched the bulletin board until we spotted Erin's applicant number, and we clasped hands in joy. As the days swiftly passed before her college journey began, we decided to take a celebratory hot spring trip, relishing every moment of the relaxation. While immersed in the soothing warmth up to my shoulders, I glimpsed my daughter, her cheeks rosy with contentment, and I found her endearing words, "Mom, this is so wonderful," deeply touching. In that serene moment, I silently vowed to protect her with all my heart, no matter what challenges lay ahead. As Aaron embarked on her college journey, she left the nest with a blend of pride in her growth and a hint of loneliness. I bid her farewell, watching her set off on her new path. Since Aaron began living independently, our nightly phone calls became a cherished ritual. With her knack for household chores and reliability beyond her years, I didn't harbor major concerns about her solo living arrangements. Yet the notion of a young woman navigating life alone stirred a lingering unease within me. I questioned if my worries were excessive, but Aaron's cheerful conversations each evening brought me solace. Those end-of-day calls became my much-needed moments of relaxation. Aaron would often share details about her college life, her classes, her new friends, her involvement in the music club, and the intriguing upperclassmen she encountered there. Hearing about her vibrant daily experiences filled me with joy. Near the semester's end, Aaron's voice carried a hint of tension as she shared, "You know what?" To my delight, she revealed the happy news. "I've started dating someone." The lucky guy was Ian, the senior she met at the club. While I congratulated her with genuine enthusiasm, a twinge of concern lingered within me. As the daughter of someone often deemed unlucky in love, I couldn't shake the worry that perhaps my own romantic misfortunes had been inherited by her. Sensing my unease, Aaron cautiously inquired, "Would you like to meet him someday?" I reassured her with a bright tone, "Absolutely." When summer vacation began, Aaron returned home, accompanied by Ian. Upon meeting him, I discovered Ian to be a well-groomed and polite young man. "Pleasure to meet you, I'm Ian. I'm dating your daughter," he greeted me with a firm handshake as soon as I opened the door. His demeanor exuded responsibility, easing any lingering concerns I had. Ian sported no tattoos or piercings, yet carried himself with a refined air. The rolled-up sleeves of his shirt added a touch of classic charm, evoking memories of my own youthful attractions. A curious sense of nostalgia washed over me in his presence. We sat down for iced tea together, and I quickly noticed that Ian was not only responsible but also incredibly thoughtful. He graciously offered to carry the tray of iced tea I had prepared and promptly refilled my empty cup when it ran low. "Ian seems like a really decent guy," I whispered to Aaron when he briefly left the table. Aaron chuckled shyly. "Well, Mom, you were worried, weren't you?" "Of course, darling. It's only natural for a mother," I replied. Aaron laughed, "But honestly, Mom, I'm doing just fine. I think I've got better luck in love than you." We both shared a hearty laugh at that, and I couldn't help but agree. You might be onto something there. As the second semester commenced, Aaron, determined not to be a burden, took on multiple jobs to support herself. Despite my monthly financial support for emergencies, she seemed intent on saving every penny for the future. Trusted by her employers, Aaron juggled school and worked tirelessly, leaving little time for her club activities. Concerned, I asked, "Are you sure you're managing? Don't hesitate to use the money I send, and do you need me to come help with chores?" Aaron replied softly, "I'm okay," her voice tinged with wariness. Since Aaron couldn't attend the club anymore, Ian began frequenting our home out of concern. "You have your own worries, don't you? I can handle things myself, really. I'm fine," Aaron reassured him. "If you say so," Ian replied, though his worry lingered. One evening, returning from work, I was greeted by the aroma of a surprise hamburger Ian had prepared. It was delicious. Having Ian around makes things easier. Aaron's cheerful tone betrayed her fondness for him. As time passed, Aaron's calls grew less frequent due to her busy schedule. She'd update me sporadically, but it was evident she was juggling a lot. Despite my reassurances, I couldn't shake the worry. Ian made sure she ate well on his visits, but on other days, Aaron resorted to cereal for sustenance. Despite my financial support, it seemed she was struggling. Aaron wasn't one to squander money, so the situation puzzled me deeply. When I confided in my mother, she brushed off my concerns, remarking, "You're worrying excessively about your adult daughter. It's hard to let go." Perhaps she was right. Aaron would turn 19 soon. Though she still seemed like a child to me, the world saw her as an adult, especially with Ian by her side. Maybe I should just trust that she'll ask for help if she really needs it. I mused, attempting to ease my anxiety. Yet finding peace amid my worries proved challenging. Winter break arrived, and Aaron's return home revealed a noticeable change. She appeared thinner than before, her once slender frame now visibly diminished. Dark circles mirrored her tired eyes. When she explained she had been working late the previous night, coming straight home thereafter, concern flooded me. "Aaron, are you pushing yourself too hard lately? Are you eating properly?" I inquired, unable to hide my worry. "I'm eating properly, cereal and such," Aaron responded. Her sudden silence spoke volumes. Hastily she added, "But I've mastered the art of cereal." Her smile strained. It seemed forced, prompting a gnawing worry within me. Was she truly eating well? Despite my consistent financial support and her diligent work, a troubling sensation crept over me. Aaron's next words only heightened my unease. "Thanks for the 13 every month, Mom." 13? "I send you 1,300 every month," I replied, stunned by the revelation. A sense of foreboding gripped me. "Aaron, where do you keep your checkbook and debit card?" "It's in my desk drawer at home," Aaron replied. "I'm heading to your place now, Aaron. There's something I need to check," I announced suddenly. Aaron looked surprised by my abrupt declaration but nodded in agreement. As we rode the train to her apartment, conversation flowed between us. The first topic broached was the matter of her mistaken allowance. Aaron explained that she maintained a living expenses account for her part-time earnings and a savings account where I deposited her allowance. She had recently depleted her savings purchasing textbooks and other necessities for the new semester. When she checked her account balance, it was a mere $78. Despite my consistent financial support, she had never inquired about the exact amount. Assuming the $78 was the sum total of my contributions over 6 months, she calculated it to approximately $13 per month. "Is that about right?" I asked. "I thought so, but I thought you might be struggling too, Mom. Honestly, you're such a silly girl. How much do you think I earned?" "Don't underestimate me," Aaron retorted to my semi-joking remark. Her words seemed to ease the tension momentarily, but a shadow crossed her face once more. It dawned on me why Aaron hadn't accessed the money I sent. Someone must have gained access to her bank account, and the most suspicious candidate was Ian, who frequented her apartment. Aaron appeared to be in denial, and I found myself reluctant to entertain the idea that her seemingly kind boyfriend would be involved in theft. I nervously watched as the train approached the nearest station. Upon reaching Aaron's home, we hurriedly retrieved her checkbook and made a beeline for the nearest ATM at the bank. With evening drawing near and the clock ticking past late afternoon, time was of the essence. We inserted the checkbook into the ATM and anxiously awaited the update. The balance displayed on the checkbook left us both speechless. Despite the consistent deposits of $1,300 each month, there were clear signs of frequent withdrawals. Aaron's complexion paled as she whispered softly, "Why?" Concerned by her visibly strained state, I escorted Aaron to a nearby coffee shop, where I resolved to delve deeper into the issue at hand. My primary focus was understanding how her checkbook was being managed. Aaron disclosed that she stored her checkbook and debit card in a locked drawer within her desk. However, the key to this drawer was stored elsewhere, making it accessible to anyone entering the apartment. The only individual with the potential to access her room in her absence was her boyfriend, Ian, who possessed the spare key. Furthermore, the PIN associated with her debit card was the same as the one she commonly used for her other cards. It became evident that someone had likely observed her during a money withdrawal. "I must admit, I was careless when setting up the account. I'm sorry, honey. Mom should have been more careful," I confessed. "I never anticipated someone else would access the money." "It's not your fault, Mom. I should have been more vigilant in managing it," Aaron responded. "Well, we both share responsibility," I interjected. "But the person at fault here is the one who spent money without permission." "Yeah, you're right," Aaron replied, her tone lacking its usual vigor. Understandably so, she had been betrayed by the person she likely trusted the most. Witnessing my daughter so crestfallen tugged at my heartstrings. "I'll handle this," I declared unexpectedly. "What? You may want to downplay this, but it's a serious offense. We need to gather evidence and report it to the police." "The police?" Aaron's voice quivered, clearly unsettled. "Yes, it's necessary, but don't worry. I'll handle everything. It's all to ensure your peace of mind during college, all right?" I reassured her, and Aaron nodded reluctantly. A few days later, I sought the help of a private detective agency, the same one that assisted me when my husband was suspected of infidelity. I need you to investigate my daughter's boyfriend. His name is Ian Mack. He's a sophomore in economics at the same university as my daughter. We suspect he may have been misusing the money I've been sending to her, I explained, displaying a photo of Ian from Aaron's messages on my phone. They agreed to take on the case without hesitation, despite their steep fees. It was a necessary expense to resolve this matter for Aaron's sake. As we awaited the results of the investigation, Aaron chose to commute to college from my house due to her anxiety. The journey took over an hour each way, which proved challenging for Aaron, but she found solace in returning home each evening. One night, she prepared granola for dinner. "Just like you said, I've become quite the cereal connoisseur," Aaron remarked with a confident wink. My heart ached at the realization that she must have been eating this meal almost daily. A month later, the investigation's findings arrived. There was undeniable evidence that Ian had been making unauthorized withdrawals from Aaron's account. According to the investigator, shortly after Ian and Aaron began dating, his lifestyle markedly improved, as attested by his friends. What shocked me even more was that Ian's transgressions didn't stop there. It turned out he was involved with several other women. I was handed a collection of photographs. Ian with his arm around different women, happily dining at restaurants, enjoying arcades, and strolling through hotel districts. In each image, a man with a distinctive beauty mark, a teardrop tattoo, was unmistakably Ian. It seems Ian hasn't just been using the money you've been sending your daughter to impress his friends. He's also been using it to maintain relationships with multiple girlfriends, the investigator grimly informed me. "Thank you," I replied, bowing my head deeply. It was time to take action. I filed a complaint with the police and sent written explanations of Ian's actions to his parents, his university, and all of his girlfriends. Initially, Ian denied everything, but he eventually confessed when confronted by multiple girlfriends. Naturally, all of the girlfriends, including Aaron, severed ties with him. As a result of the police investigation, Ian was expelled from the university and sent back to his parents' home. Fortunately, his parents were reasonable and came to my house with a humble gift to apologize. For the time being, his parents have agreed to reimburse the stolen money. "I'll make our stupid son repay this, even if it kills him," Ian's father vowed, his voice choked with emotion. According to what Aaron heard through the grapevine, Ian is now working multiple jobs to repay his parents. By the time this ordeal settled, spring had arrived. To mark the end of this unfortunate chapter, we decided to celebrate Aaron's spring break with our first trip to a hot spring resort in over a year. Aaron had managed to reclaim her life since then, her complexion and physique returning to a healthy state. As we soaked in the warm baths, indulged in delicious food from the inn, and relaxed in front of the TV, I felt like we were finally able to enjoy some peace after a long while. Just before drifting off, Aaron's voice came from beneath the covers. "Hey, what's on your mind? Remember how you and Dad split because of his reckless spending and affairs, right?" Aaron's words caught me off guard. My ex-husband, much like Ian, was someone who flaunted wealth to impress others, yet struggled to cover basic expenses due to his extravagant habits and moral lapses. "I served my ex-husband with divorce papers, just as you did with Ian. It seems we have a pattern of choosing similar types of men, don't we?" Aaron offered a rueful smile. "Indeed. We'll have to be more cautious from now on," I replied, trying to sound upbeat despite feeling a bit uneasy. "By the way, you seem happier lately. Did you meet someone special?" "No way, it's not a boyfriend," Aaron exclaimed teasingly. "Could he possibly become one?" Lately, I had been developing a friendship with the investigator assigned to our case, but I hadn't mentioned it to Aaron yet. Even so, was there a spark, or was it just the bond between a mother and daughter who've been through a lot together? "Hang on, are you sure it's going to work out this time, Mom?" Aaron teased with a playful chuckle. "Well, it should, right? Unlike your father, he seems serious and dependable. But let's get serious here. If it's my turn after all this, Mom, it won't be a laughing matter," I replied, adopting a serious tone. "Got it? I'll tread carefully," Aaron responded solemnly. But then, unable to contain our amusement, we exchanged a look and burst into laughter. "Next week is my son's birthday, and I'd like to order a cake for 20 people, Emily said. Hearing this, I fell silent. 20 servings isn't a typical request, but she must have known I couldn't refuse. "Understood," I muttered softly. Emily smirked unpleasantly, but I was determined to have the last laugh. I clenched my fists, resolute not to let her have her way. My name is Rothy. I'm a regular housewife who works part-time at a local supermarket. My only son, Nicholas, graduated from college and found a job at a nearby company. We are a happy family living together harmoniously. However, there's one unpleasant person at my part-time job, Emily. Emily's father, Christopher, is an executive at the supermarket. She transferred here from a different company about 2 years ago. Despite being a full-time employee hired mid-career, us part-timers, including me, have been here longer. From the beginning, Emily has been arrogant, ignoring advice and guidance. Both the staff and part-timers are at their wits' end. About a year ago, a part-timer named Rachel confronted her. Emily, even if your dad's an executive, you're just an employee here. We part-timers are your seniors. You should speak respectfully and listen to our advice. I thought Rachel was amazing for saying what no one else would. However, soon after, Rachel was transferred to a location too far for her to commute, forcing her to resign. Everyone thought it was Emily's doing, but nobody dared to say it out loud. Since then, no one has opposed her. The supermarket where I've worked for a long time is more than just a job. It's a cherished place where I belong. I often hang out with my part-time colleagues, and apart from Emily, we have good relationships. Then one day, as I continued to work, hoping for these happy days to last, something happened. Mom, I'm thinking of getting married, Nicholas announced. My husband Dylan and I were overjoyed. Truth be told, I always wanted a daughter to go shopping with, have tea with, and share a mother-daughter relationship. But after Nicholas, we weren't blessed with more children, so that dream remained unfulfilled. I hoped that by getting along with Nicholas's wife, I could build such a relationship. What's she like? I eagerly asked. Nicholas seemed happy. She's a very kind girl. Her parents seem well established, like she comes from a good family. I'm still a bit worried if I'm good enough for her. That's wonderful. I'm excited to meet her, I replied. Her name is Emily, Nicholas continued. He often talked about her, saying Emily this and Emily that. She apparently attends cooking classes and is good at cooking. She seems to like sweets too. Hearing Nicholas talk about her made me happy. A week after Nicholas's news on the weekend, she was coming over to meet us. She arranged it to match my day off. Not being as skilled in cooking to impress someone who excels at it, I ordered pizza and prepared a cake for that day. Dylan and I waited at home for Nicholas to bring her over. Then the long-awaited doorbell rang. She's here, I announced, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. I rushed from the living room to the front door. We're back. Emily, this is Mom, Nicholas said. As I turned to the woman beside him, I froze in shock. Nice to meet you, I'm Emily. Hi, Emily. Right before me stood Emily, the very source of my troubles at my part-time supermarket job. You know my mom? Nicholas asked. I had no idea Nicholas's mom was you. Emily seemed equally surprised. Come in for now, please, I said, still shaken, inviting them inside. Leaving me at the entrance, Nicholas led Emily to the living room. Hearing them talk with Dylan, I took a deep breath to calm myself. They had met at university. Emily is 2 years older than Nicholas. They were introduced by an acquaintance and reconnected about a year ago, eventually starting to date. I was surprised to learn your part-time job was at my workplace. You said you were in administration, so I thought you worked at a law office near the supermarket, Nicholas said, laughing nonchalantly, unaware of where his girlfriend worked. Indeed, Emily had graduated from law school and used to work at a law firm. Nicholas must have assumed she continued working at a law office and never asked explicitly. We chatted around the pizza, the conversation mingling with the unexpected reality of our new connection. I could only force a smile, unable to accept the reality and wishing it was just a dream. I'm truly surprised to think you're Rothy's son. I've been under your mom's care at work, Emily said, feigning innocence as if she treated us part-timers as anything but slaves. That's not true. I'm sure everyone's grateful for someone like you. Mom always says she enjoys her job and that there are nice people at the supermarket, Nicholas said. That's nice to hear, I replied, though I never intended to include Emily in that group of good people. Naturally, I couldn't say such a thing, so I stood up. I'll go prepare the dessert. Emily, would you like coffee or tea? I wanted to be alone, my heart racing. I needed to calm down quickly. I'll help, Emily, she said suddenly, standing up. an unusual gesture from her considering our part-time job. "It's okay, you're a guest. Please sit down," I insisted, but Emily walked to the kitchen. Dylan and Nicholas watched with smiles, so I sighed quietly. However, Emily didn't miss a beat. "It's really surprising to think you'll be my mother-in-law." "Yes, that's right. It will be easier to get along. Looking forward to it." What did she mean by that? I had a bad feeling about those words, but I tried to keep her. Her smile was a sneer, always displaying contempt towards me at work. "Just so you know, don't say anything unnecessary to Nicholas." Her words wiped the smile from my face. Emily knew. She knew she was disliked by us part-timers simply because I happened to be Nicholas's mom. She must have been planning to do whatever she wanted, using Christopher and Nicholas as shields. I turned pale, frightened by her, fearing she would destroy our happy days. Emily eventually left the kitchen without helping. That must have been her purpose for coming here. "What about the preparation?" Nicholas's voice interrupted. Emily replied curtly. I returned cheerily, not wanting to be in the way, so I came back. I told Nicholas, "Won't you reconsider the marriage?" But my words would undoubtedly make my son dislike me. "Don't interfere with Nicholas's marriage," even Dylan scolded me. So I just watched the two of them. Still, they seemed to have a good marriage, and Nicholas looked happy. A month after the marriage, I found out Emily was pregnant. Although it was complicated, I was also happy. Nicholas and Emily built a house next to ours, a separate household from Nicholas's. Dylan told me you should be a little more considerate, but knowing Emily's true nature, I wanted to avoid her. Still, I loved my grandson. His name was Ethan, a lively boy I rarely saw, but I looked forward to hearing his healthy cries. However, about 6 months after he was born, there was a day when his crying could be heard all day long. I finally rang the neighbor's doorbell. "What is it?" I said. "Hello." Probably because I was the one who called out, Emily, who seemed to have been asleep, came to the door. Knowing it was me, I was worried because Ethan had been crying nonstop. "Is everything okay?" I simply stated the reason, but Emily looked annoyed. "Are you saying I'm neglecting Ethan?" she retorted sharply. "No, that's not what I'm saying. I was just worried. If you're tired, I can wash him or help in any way," I hastily offered. But Emily didn't seem to hear. "Dealing with modern kids is difficult," she muttered dismissively. In the end, I was turned away, and Ethan kept crying. A few days later, Emily came to our house with Ethan in her arms. "Rothy, could you watch Ethan for a bit?" she asked unexpectedly. "Yes, of course," I replied, surprised by the sudden change in attitude. "What's this about?" I tried to understand the situation, but Emily left Ethan and his things at our house and departed. "Oh, Ethan's here," Dylan noticed from the entrance, happily taking Ethan from my hands and heading to the living room. I followed Dylan, carrying Ethan's belongings. Since then, Emily started leaving Ethan with us frequently from morning till night. It was like running a daycare alongside my part-time job. Emily was on parental. I did agree to watch him, but there's a limit. I talked to Dylan and Nicholas about it, but they don't seem to take it seriously. Eventually, I had to take time off work or ask Dylan to watch Ethan briefly so I could rush to and from work. However, interfering too much and upsetting Emily would be troublesome. Despite the difficulty, I enjoy and cherish my time with Ethan. Dylan also looks forward to Ethan's daily visits. Busy but happy, the three of us spent enjoyable times together. Half a year later, Ethan's first birthday was approaching, and I was pondering what to give him as his first present. In the past, birthdays meant inviting relatives for celebrations, but there was no invitation from Nicholas or Emily. They must be planning a modest family celebration. While looking at my phone and thinking this, I received a call. "It's Emily. What could it be?" I answered the phone suspiciously, as Emily usually didn't contact me. "Hello, Rothy. As you probably know, next week is my son's birthday, so I'd like a cake for 20. People were surprised by this sudden request. I was at a loss for words. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. "Just what I said. We're inviting relatives for a celebration, so I'm asking for the cake. I plan to serve a meal, so I can't manage the cake too. Plus, I thought I'd give you a chance to show off." "Aren't I kind?" Emily's words filled my mind with question marks. We weren't even invited to the celebration, and a cake for 20 people is not something a regular person would request. Emily's relatives, aunts and uncles will be among the about 20 guests. Surely my employer at the supermarket and Emily's father-in-law, Christopher, will be there too, I thought, trying to make sense of the situation. I already told Dad that you will make the cake. It's a chance to show your good side. Who knows? You might get promoted to a full-time position, Emily said mockingly. I don't aspire to be a full-time employee, I replied quietly. As a part-timer, I shouldn't worry so much, but I couldn't forget Rachel, who was driven to resign. I told myself I must avoid being pushed into quitting. Emily's words are like knowing. I couldn't refuse, knowing she was exploiting my weakness. Cakes are easy. I'm more experienced in cooking, so I'll give advice, she said presumptuously, more than I had anticipated. Reluctantly, I agreed. All right, but with 20 people, maybe you should reconsider serving individual portions or using a large platter, I suggested. Ha? I'm the senior here. I'm not asking for advice. And what do you mean, okay? Can't you speak more respectfully? Emily retorted sharply. What kind of person is she? I held back my words, muttering quietly, understood. I could imagine Emily's smirking face on the other end of the phone, my frustration seeping through. She probably planned to ridicule me by presenting her perfect full course alongside my poor cake. But I wouldn't let that happen. I made a decision. Of course, Ethan was the star. I wanted to make his first birthday memorable, even though he wouldn't remember it. I started planning the cake design and went to a baking supply store for ingredients. Though I felt forced, I was also excited. Emily seemed annoyed by my amateur excitement. It won't amount to much. You should have asked me, the senior, for advice, she said when she came over to scoff. But I had no time for that. Later, Dylan and I were officially invited to the birthday. On the day, Dylan, with nothing else to do, left early for their house. It's too early, I said, but he was too excited. I sent him off with a smile and got up, ready to prepare. I muttered, checking the time, when the doorbell rang. Rothy, are you ready? Emily started entering without permission. She frowned upon seeing me relaxed. What, you were sitting? Where's the cake? I was about to start. Don't worry, I'll bring it on time, I assured her. It was only 8:00 a.m., 4 hours until everyone arrived, but Emily was shocked. An amateur can't make a cake for 20 people in 4 hours, she ranted. I've been preparing perfect dishes since 4:00 a.m. Don't ruin the event. Okay, I get it. It's Ethan's birthday. I wouldn't do that, I snapped back, making her frown even more. Just make sure to bring the cake by 12:00 p.m. She left, snorting. Was she bragging about finishing her part? I laughed at her frustration, doing nothing until the door closed. Then, I started. I brought the genoise from another room to the kitchen. A cake for 20 people can't be baked in a home oven, so I had borrowed a friend's oven to bake the large dough. I decorated it with prepared cream and fruits, made Ethan's favorite cars from cookie dough, and by 11:00 a.m., I was satisfied with the finished cake. I hurriedly finished and called Nicholas to safely transport the cake. I left it in a cool place and headed to the room where everyone was gathering, the largest room in Nicholas's house. They planned to eventually build a wall here to divide the room and turn it into a children's room. It was a good opportunity for such an event, as we hadn't celebrated the new house with relatives before. Ethan, unsettled by the crowd, was crying with Nicholas holding him. Everyone smiled at little Ethan's discomfort. Then Emily, with her mother-in-law Olivia's help, proudly brought in her dishes. Here's the appetizer assortment, she announced, placing small plates in front of each guest. The presentation was indeed beautiful and well-crafted. However, by the time she finished serving everyone, the first plates needed clearing. Ethan was still crying, and Emily and Olivia were busy. I stood to help, but Christopher said, "You should sit, Rothy. We're supposed to be the guests." Indeed, I agreed and sat back down, but the situation looked tough. I took Ethan from Nicholas and suggested he help Emily. As soon as I held Ethan, he became happy and started laughing. Everyone was charmed by this, but Emily looked displeased. She couldn't treat me like a pawn anymore, especially after hearing Christopher's earlier words. Christopher had been attentive, asking me about my job and Emily. I couldn't tell him everything, but our conversation brought up Rachel, who had been forced to resign. Did he really do that? He didn't seem like such a person. The dishes, served at intervals of 10 minutes each, were somehow completed, but judging by the relatives' reactions, it didn't seem they were fully satisfied. No matter how confident Emily was in her cooking, she should have considered serving family-style dishes given the guests and situation. All the dishes are served. Did everyone enjoy them? Emily said this with a happy expression. It seemed she was the most. Olivia next to her hadn't eaten anything and looked distressed, which was pitiable. Rothy has made Ethan's cake. It's ready, right? Emily turned to me. Yes, I'll bring it, I replied. I asked Nicholas for help and brought in the large cake. Emily's nieces and nephews gathered around the big box. Dylan held Ethan, who didn't show interest yet, but the adults were curious about the large cake box. Here it is. Nicholas and I opened the box. Cheers erupted at the sight of the cake we revealed. The children's genuine reactions were delightful, and I couldn't help but smile. The relatives were impressed, asking, "Did you really make this?" They took pictures. However, Emily, in a voice that cut through the calm atmosphere, exclaimed loudly, "What? You said you'd make it, not buy it. I want a unique cake for Ethan." She must have been tired and hungry. Her anger peaked with everyone's positive response to my cake. I did make it. Lies, you weren't doing anything this morning. The genoise was already baked, and the decoration was ready, Emily insisted, surprised. Genoise. It's a type of sponge cake. I've always called it that. I smiled at Emily. Ha, Christopher laughed. Then Dylan explained, "Actually, my wife used to be a pastry chef. I couldn't bake a cake for 20 people in our oven, so I asked a friend to borrow theirs and baked it yesterday." When I said that, Emily's face fell. She must have been upset, her plans having gone awry. It was fun to bake such a large cake after a long time. Thank you for the opportunity, Emily. Now, let's take pictures with Ethan and the cake, and then we can all enjoy it, I suggested. Seeing everyone's the most gratifying part was seeing everyone smile. Ethan, influenced by everyone's joy, smiled too. The group photo captured Emily's stained face amid everyone else beaming, a moment worth cherishing without any malice. While everyone enjoyed the cake, I held Ethan, who happily ate his own cake made of yogurt cream and banana pancakes. After seeing off the relatives and cleaning up with Olivia, I finally had a moment to relax. "Ethan is really attached to you, Rothy," Olivia remarked, watching Ethan in my arms as we all took a coffee break. Nicholas responded, "She always looks after him." I noticed Emily's stunned expression, but before she could react, Christopher intervened. "What do you mean, always? Aren't you on parental leave?" Christopher's question caught Emily off guard. "Well, not always, just occasionally, like when I go to the hospital," Emily replied sheepishly. I gave a wry smile, unable to say anything. Nicholas realized his slip-up and looked uneasy. Christopher, noticing today's events and Emily's behavior, seemed contemplative. "Don't lie, tell the truth," he demanded. Emily murmured in a small voice, "I left him when I went out with friends." Christopher pressed further, "Is that all you burdened her with? You didn't know Rothy was a pastry chef, did you? Then why did you ask her to make such a big cake? Surely you were trying to be mean to her." Emily turned red and fell silent at Christopher's words, caught off guard. Nicholas was flustered. "Apologize to Rothy," he said firmly to Emily. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she looked at me and murmured softly, "I'm sorry." Christopher then politely bid farewell to Dylan and me. "I'm sorry for the trouble my daughter caused," he said. "It's all right, we understand you're busy, but please come to visit sometimes," we replied, seeing off their parents-in-law. Regarding Rachel, it seemed Christopher was not involved. Emily had persuaded the manager to transfer her after I inquired about it. Learning the truth, Christopher disciplined the manager and Emily had to resign at his behest. Christopher, angry at her for disgracing him, later visited the store where I worked to apologize. He indeed seems to be a responsible person. Since then, Emily has been respectful and no longer belittles people. She seems to genuinely care for Ethan. Nicholas, unaware of her previous coldness towards me, was disillusioned after learning everything. It was the first time he scolded Emily. Emily realized her mistakes and became much more subdued, as if she had changed as a person. She probably had been acting as she pleased, misusing Christopher's influence and thinking herself important. Being reprimanded by her father and husband at her age was a humbling experience. While I inwardly chuckled at this, I felt relieved. Looking at the photo from that day, I naturally continued my part-time job. There was no longer the needless burden of unexpectedly taking care of Ethan, so it didn't cause any issues with my shifts. I've been enjoying my time as usual, going out with my part-time colleagues. Emily's attitude has changed. She no longer behaves as before and has even asked me to teach her how to bake cakes. I was genuinely happy about this. While it's not the mother-daughter relationship I had dreamed of, I hope to gradually build a good relationship with my son's wife. I want us to become a family that celebrates and watches over